Thank you. Yeah, as you've heard, my name is Mark Balsom. I'm here with Securosys. I've been in cybersecurity for about 30 years. What I wanted to do here is talk to you about the challenges that are being faced by many of the customers we're working with and share some of our recommendations for how you might go about tackling them. Great. So, going to start with quantum computing. This is a quantum computer in the image right here. I'm going to talk about if this is something you should be worried about. I'm going to talk about ongoing industry initiatives to help us deal with this upcoming challenge. I'll then talk a little bit about how you should plan ahead in order to deal with those challenges and the importance of becoming what we call crypto agile. Then I'll talk a little bit about key management. What are the standards that have been driving greater and greater use of encryption across our networks? I'll then talk a bit about the resulting crypto sprawl, where encryption is everywhere and keys are everywhere. How do we manage that? I'll then talk a little bit about certificate management, how you should actively control your certificates, your digital certificates, to ensure uptime and what can happen if you aren't doing that. Then we'll talk a bit about the impending challenge from the industry that's significantly reducing certificate lifetimes. It's well worth being aware of if you've not come across that so far. And finally, just a bit about crypto sovereignty, the concept of crypto sovereignty, how you can embrace the cloud and make use of all its benefits, but still retain ownership, still retain control of your data, your key material. Okay, should you be worried? You may well have read quantum computers are advancing, they're maturing all of the time at a rapid pace. Quantum computers will bring us enormous benefits across a range of areas, but unfortunately there are some implications for the security systems we've built and that we rely on today. With the use of Peter Shor's algorithm, that is Peter Shor on the screen there, we know that with quantum computers, sufficiently powerful quantum computers that are coming, they will in the future be able to break the classical asymmetric, that you maybe also heard that referred to as public key cryptography, that we rely on. So that's the likes of RSA, elliptic curve, Diffie-Hellman. So those algorithms, to be clear, are not broken today. They're not broken yet, but many analysts, the majority of analysts, in fact, expect to see sufficiently powerful quantum computers sometime in the second half of the next decade. So that means we could well be less than 10 years away from established cryptography becoming broken. The challenge we have here is, as it says, there is no consensus. We do not know. With Y2K, we knew exactly when that was going to happen. It was at the end of the last century. So we had time to plan because we knew exactly when it was going to occur. We don't know when Q-Day will be. It's just not as predictable. Advice out there, talk to the BSI, who are the sort of agency around this in Germany. They would say something like the early 2030s. I've got some other guidance which I'll take us through now. If I press the button down firmly enough, I will take you through that now. Good. This is from NIST, the National Institute of Security Standards and Technology in the US. And what you can see here is those algorithms I was talking about, RSA, ECDSA for elliptic curve, and the Edwards curve, another elliptic curve standard. You're being recommended here that they should be deprecated in most cases by the end of 2030, but actually they should no longer be used. They are disallowed by the end of 2035. So as you'll be able to very quickly work out, that gives you less than 10 years to address this problem. Even with the longer bit lengths, that's not going to save us. We need to move away from these algorithms. To show you as well, something a bit closer to home here in Europe, again, the BSI in Germany, that's the Federal Office for Information Security, they've published an even more aggressive timeline. You can see here, they're talking about the end of 2031. You should no longer be using those algorithms. So that's a pretty substantial task ahead of us. Fortunately, the industry has been preparing for this. You'll see here there's a competition that took place, again, NIST in the US, ran this competition, started in 2016. There were a number of submissions, and that's been whittled down to 3 quantum crypto safe algorithms. Those were selected back in 2024, and they've been now being officially ratified as FIPS standards 203, 204, and 205, the likes of ML-Chem and MLDSA for key encapsulation or key exchange, and digital signing, DSA. So there's more coming along. They'll be with us shortly. But I think the point I really want us to get across here, and hopefully it's becoming clear, this is not going to be a trivial task. It's not going to be a simple project. It's not like back in the past, colleagues in the front here, like Simon I've worked with in the past, know well, moving away from some of the hashing algorithms, SHA-1 or prior to that MD5, that took an awful lot of work, and that was just the hashing algorithm. Here, these are the actual keys that we're using, the algorithms that we're actively using. This is far more significant a task. One thing I'll point out, if it helps, just on the bottom right there, symmetric cryptography. So typically you'll be using AES for that. That is not affected. It's the asymmetric crypto that's the problem here. So if you're worried about AES, or hopefully you're not using triple DES, I know some in banking might still be, but yeah, AES will not be affected. It's not impacted by this. Right, so that's quite a lot, and I apologize for that, but I've got a bit more that you should worry about. And this is the concept of harvest now, decrypt later. Harvest now, decrypt later, it describes an attack where data can be intercepted today, it's captured today, it's then stored, put to one side. We're not going to attack it immediately, but you're taking it to one side, storing it with a view to decrypting that data later once the sufficiently powerful quantum computers are available, once they're on stream. I think the main takeaway you should have here is attackers do not need to have a quantum computer today to launch this sort of attack. They simply need to intercept the traffic. So sensitive data that you have with a long shelf life is already vulnerable. It's already at risk. And of course, now we're all using the cloud regularly. That approach means that attackers are not going to need a quantum computer themselves to launch this sort of attack. It was something that will become available to everyone. Once sufficiently powerful quantum computers exist, they'll be available through the cloud as well. Companies like Amazon are actively working on that right now. Just an aside, just a bit of a silly note. While I was putting these slides together, I noticed there's an IPA, pale ale, called Harvest Now, Decrypt Later. I've not tried it myself, and I apologize. I've not brought any samples with you to try, but maybe you can look into that when you get back home. Right, so that's all the bad news. I'll try and balance things a little bit with hopefully some good news. If you're as old as me and you've been in the industry as long as I have, you remember at one time every year was going to be the year of PKI. This will be the year that Baltimore existed and everyone had shares in Baltimore. It's going to be the next big thing. That never really happened. However, quietly, without us noticing, everybody who uses the internet has been using PKI technology on a regular basis, on a daily basis, in the form of SSL, or more properly TLS, that we're all using to secure our internet connections. By the same token, we're all using post-quantum crypto without realizing it. Look at the timeline here. Back in 2024, Google first enabled post-quantum as the default algorithms on Chrome for desktop, followed up by Chrome for Android, and then Firefox for desktop added it late in 2024. Last year, OpenSSL, OpenSSH, some of the most vital tools and building blocks that we're using in our industry, they became PQ enabled by default as well. Then moving on to October, Apple rolled it out by default for iOS, iPadOS, and macOS version 26. So this technology exists. Oops, if you excuse me, I just realized this slide builds, and I can be even more reassuring and show you some images of the fact that 8 of the top 10 websites used globally are supporting hybrid or post-quantum encryption already. So hopefully a bit of balance with some good news there. That's over 50% and rising of human, not machine-to-machine, human traffic, us using web browsers. Okay, I'm not planning to go through this slide in detail. There's a lot there, but I thought it's more useful as a reference that you can look back on later. And clearly, with a London audience, nice to be talking to an audience here in London, I do want to highlight that the UK's National Cyber Security Centre have published clear guidance for us all to follow along exactly these lines. It's not just the US and the Europeans, the Germans. There's clear guidance along these lines for the UK as well. I've incorporated that actually into this next slide. So let's move on to developing our migration plan. And I'll just double check how far it goes with the build. Great. So what we would recommend here is to firstly establish a clear owner of this problem within your organization. Ensure that the initiative has got backing right at the highest level of the organization. There will be new technology that you need. There will be technology that's too old that will need to be replaced and swapped out. So get that backing and have someone own the problem. Following from that, you then build an inventory of all the cryptographic assets that are in use across your networks. That's going to be keys, it's going to be certificates, it's going to be individual security solutions, devices, encrypting tape drives, encrypting disks. It's going to be a number of utilities that all make use of cryptography. There are available discovery tools. Our partner Keyfactor, for example, has got a very good tool with AgileSec. But once you have that inventory, you can then start to draft and plan and form a strategy. Going back to the timeline, by 2028, you should really have that in place. That's going to involve identifying the systems that have to be the priorities. What are the ones you really need to tackle first? Where are your biggest risks? What will be those hardest tasks? Make sure you can build a plan with those factors in mind. You need to confirm that all of the solution and component suppliers have got a real post-quantum strategy and a clear timeline to provide you with what you need to support these standards. By this point, ideally, they should be able to support production levels of performance, not just sort of provide you with some sort of early access sandbox to do a POC or a pilot. You should be getting to a point now where they can offer you production levels of performance for this. You're going to need to replace some of your technology, stuff that's dated. Maybe the vendor stopped supporting that now and maintaining it. Maybe that vendor's gone out of business, but it's still part of how your systems work. That really needs to be understood. You'll then test, you'll evaluate all the new and upgraded post-quantum ready solutions and deploy them across your networks. The aim here should be to have everything migrated by 2035 at the latest. And then continue to monitor the developments in the industry. This is not a one and done. I hope that is clear. We're learning as we go with this. These are brand new algorithms. Various things can happen. What we would recommend is that you do what we call to become crypto agile, to have crypto agility. That's the ability, should you need it further down the line, to make these sort of changes again. Crypto agility is going to remain important. These are brand new algorithms. We should expect, as we get real world experience, we start using them in anger across our networks, that we'll learn things. It will impact on the standards. We may discard some algorithms and replace them with new ones. There may be best practices that change over time. Retain what we've talked about here, these working groups, the inventory you've built, keep it up to date, keep the mindset, keep the processes, all of this that you've built from that migration, and you'll be ready for the next wave, whenever that might occur. And if I press it hard enough, good. So, just step back a moment at this point, and let's consider what's happened in our industry over the last few years. Organizations have faced more and more regulation around data security. For example, GDPR, which is an EU standard from 2018, that talks about appropriate technical and organizational measures, encryption. HIPAA, if you're in the US, for health insurance data, mandatory encryption for health information. And then a global standard, PCI DSS, that mandates the use of strong encryption for cardholder data. All of these, and that's just a small number, that's the tip of the iceberg, all of these regulations generate crypto sprawl, we call it. You've got a significant number of security solutions all across your systems making use of cryptography, all holding vital key material. Cryptography depends upon the security of those keys. So you've got encrypting tape drives, you've got encrypted hard disks, you've got cloud storage, equally in the same way, databases with transparent data encryption, various backup solutions, virtual machine, container encryption. All of these are places where keys are now in place, and they're incredibly important. So The old approach of using a spreadsheet, that's really not going to cut it anymore. That's not going to be up to the job. So what could we do to address that? A key management system. So a KMS, or a key management system, integrates with all sorts of systems, all those things I was talking about, databases, VM controllers, encrypted storage, typically via something called the KMIP protocol. That's the Key Management Interoperability Protocol. It's from the OASIS Working Group since 2010. And an effective KMS is going to address a whole range of security demands across your infrastructure, including strong key generation and secured backup, managing key expiry, and then the replacement, or the rotation as we call it, of those keys. We're going to address compliance with some of those guidelines we were talking about before, and those regulations that apply across your deployments. It's going to provide discovery, so you can look across your network and work out where are all my keys and certificates, and can I build that inventory. It's going to provide secure access controls for administrators, and full logging and full audit functionality, so you can demonstrate, you can prove you're taking the right measures, that you're covered. I'll mention as well, for those affected by it in the EU, DORA's regulations actually require you to manage your keys in this way. And it also says, by the way, you need to be ready for post-quantum. Finally, deploying a properly managed KMS is a key element of any PQC project. So it ties into what we've been talking about, but it will also assist you in an ongoing sort of crypto agility approach within your organization. You know where everything is, and you can actively manage it. Great. And then we talked about key management. Digital certificates matter as well. Managing those effectively is also vital. X509 version 3 is the standard that applies here. What a digital certificate is doing is effectively adding an identity to an underlying private key. It's binding an identity, binding that entity to an underlying asymmetric key. Allows you to specify policies, allows you to add an expiry date, and this is where the problems can occur. And we've got some examples here. So just with keys, certificates need to be monitored, need to be tracked, and then managed centrally to prevent outages. So examples of that going wrong would be Microsoft in 2020. Microsoft Teams unfortunately went down because Microsoft had missed the certificate renewal. Ericsson, this is 2018, Ericsson, no longer necessarily the handsets, but actually the back-end infrastructure we use for mobile phone networks. They had an expired security certificate, 2018, took down millions of UK smartphone users. More recently, Apple, the App Store, Apple Music services many of us use day to day, that was down, again, because of an issue with an SSL certificate expiring. And it's going to get worse, I'm afraid. Until March the 15th of this year, the maximum lifetime for a certificate has been 398 days. So that's great. We've always had a year and a little bit of wiggle room to renew comfortably. Imminent CA browser forum changes will greatly increase the importance of certificate management. So the end of next week, in fact, March the 15th, certificates will go down to a maximum lifetime of 200 days. A year later, that will become 100 days. And then by March the 15th, 2029, it will be 47 days maximum lifetime of a public certificate. As you can imagine, at that point, really, it will not be optional to have some sort of proper certificate management approach, some sort of automation. And then I'll talk a little bit here, just briefly, about the security of the underlying key material across all of those systems, all of those architectures we've been talking about, the asymmetric keys, the private keys. If you've got cryptographic keys and you're holding them and using them in software, that represents soft security. So the keys are exposed, they're vulnerable, whether that's in the working memory of the server, whether that's out in swap files, or in core dumps, or increasingly now, it's a virtual machine, and you take a snapshot of that virtual machine. It's a trivial operation, very easy to do. That data includes asymmetric cryptographic keys. So I've got an example on the screen here. You can see it with the naked eye, partly because I put a box around it, but also if I describe what these keys look like. Most data, we know this, it compresses down because it's got patterns in it. So it looks like 80s computer games, or it looks like flock wallpaper with patterns in it. Anything designed to be random, like a cryptographic key is, will stand out. It looks like, again, if you're old enough to remember, and apologize for those people that don't, but when you had an old analog television, you turned it on, you hadn't tuned it to a channel, you'd get that snow on the screen. That's what a cryptographic key actually looks like. So you can see it there with the naked eye. It would be trivial for an algorithm to go through a core dump and find that key. You could say, in fact, in the day-to-day, to an AI agent, okay, based on this certificate, find me the corresponding private key in this VM snapshot. It's going to be a moment for it to pick up on exactly that key and pass it back to you. That's one of the security challenges we face here. So the good news is that this is what HSMs are for, and you don't need to blindly trust the vendors, us saying, oh yeah, great, you can trust us because we're nice people. These things, HSMs are independently validated by testing labs and independent testing bodies. Many key management systems, KMS, that we talked about before, ones that you'll find in the market are very often software-based. Problem with that is what you're then effectively doing is you're gathering together all of your keys in one location where potential attackers can pick them up. That is a concern. So what I'd suggest that we should be looking for here is a KMS that can be coupled with an HSM. So then at least the key database is encrypted with a hardware master key. In fact, in an ideal world, what you'd look for is a KMS where all of the keys are held in the HSM. Of course, I'm biased when I say that, but that will come. And then also, let's talk about cloud and digital sovereignty. Customers quite rightly like deploying services very quickly, very flexibly in cloud environments, but have understandable concerns about data sovereignty. That's the concept of retaining control over your data when you've got it hosted in the cloud with a third party. Stories such as the recent example I've got on the screen here, Microsoft handed the FBI a set of customers' BitLocker keys. This is very recent. This happened only within the last few months. And those sort of stories have helped to drive that demand for technologies like bring your own key and also hold your own key. BYOK, HYOK will allow customers to generate their keys in-house, use secure hardware like we saw on the slide before for strong key protection, work with cloud providers like AWS, Microsoft Azure, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and then you've got that ability to reclaim your data should you need to. Cancel the service, move it elsewhere. It could be you move to another cloud provider. It could be you bring that in-house, you repatriate that and bring it all in-house. HYOK works on similar principles. DK, you might hear it called XKS, cache-only keys, and that takes a step further where that approach means you've got a vital encryption key held by you, and that provides you with a kill switch. And I notice I'm about to run out of time here, so I'll just quickly move on. An illustration here of what an ideal key management system might look like, all the various areas that we've been working through here through this session. Discovery of certificates, monitoring compliance, integration into all those security solutions we're using, and those security hardware types we've been using, encrypted disks and tapes, etc. Direct interfaces into cloud systems, so you've got BYOK, you've got HYOK supported, strong underlying hardware key generation and usage protection, support for hybrid and post-quantum algorithms, and then in this example here, we've even got an AI interface that allows you to ask questions of your cryptographic estate. How many certificates expire within the next 10 days? Or do I still have RSA keys in my production systems with a key length of 2048 bits or less that I should be concerned about? And then finally, given I've got 30 seconds, finally to summarize. So cryptographic keys, I hope this has been clear through this session, are absolutely central to the security solutions you've got deployed today. And when you actually look at this, you do the inventory, you'll realize when you do this discovery, there'll be far more than you realize right now, and that number's only going to get larger. So identifying those keys, taking control over those keys, that is really important right now, but it's also a vital part of that post-quantum planning that we spoke about. Do deploy a key management system to manage all those keys effectively from one central location, but protect the most sensitive, the most powerful keys that you have in secure hardware, in an HSM. Do the same for your certificates. Actively identify, track, and manage them so you don't have those outages that we talked about previously. And same with the cloud. Do not forget about your cloud deployments. retain direct control of your cryptographic master keys, and then have that ability to migrate or remove your company's data down the line should you need to. And you'll be pleased to hear that is everything. And I've come in slightly over time, only a few seconds, but thank you very much for your time. If you've got any questions, we're actually just around the corner on stand F296. So you go straight out, turn left, you'll find us there. Myself and my colleagues be very happy to continue the conversation with you.